Why, hello, everybody. It's time for my March wrap up. I read a grand total of 5 books, which I've never actually done before in 1 month. So it's also going to be a mini review of each book of what I've read this month. Why don't we get started? The first book I read was Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, as my other books call. It follows the girl Jane Eyre, where she is orphaned by her parents and adopted by her uncle, and then outcasted by her aunt, and then in a institute for orphaned girls for 8 years, and then turned into a governess for a Mr. Rochester, and soon falls in love with him. He returns the same affection, then realizes he is actually still married to a complete lunatic. Then she runs away in the span of a year, teaches a farm girls in the town of Morton, England, and then returns to where Thornfield Hall is after her uncle of Madeira dies and leaving her £20,000, but she splits it with her cousins who got absolutely nothing. And then finds out that Mr. Rochester is blind in one eye, has no hand, I forget which hand it was, and then ends up marrying him and having a couple of kids with him. The next book I read was a middle grade book, James and the Giant Peach by Roald Dahl. Now, it's completely different than the movie. Everybody knows the movie. It follows him living with his mom and dad and on the sea, next to the sea on a beach, then ends up his parents dying, and then living with his horrible aunts, and some random weird dude shows up and gives him a bag of specialty bugs. He accidentally trips and has all these bugs end up in a tree that grows a giant peach. His aunts try to extort money from everybody so they can be rich. Selfish weirdos. Trying not to swear. And then he ends up going in the peach and finding all these little creatures in there, like a grasshopper, a caterpillar, an earthworm, a glowworm, and a ladybug, and then ends up going from wherever they are in England to New York City, and ends up, I think, staying in Central Park where they live. Then the next book I read is Dorothy Must Die by Danielle Page. It follows a girl named Amy Gum from Kansas to, obviously, Oz, where Dorothy actually, in the original Wizard of Oz books, returns and decides she needs to be power hungry with all the magic. This is the first book of a series. I don't have the rest of them, but I will be getting them to continue to see if Amy Gum kills Dorothy. She has been recruited by the Revolutionary Order of the Wicked, and she has been given a mission to remove the Tin Man's heart, steal a scarecrow's brain, take the lion's courage, and then Dorothy must die. It was all in all a very good book. And then I get the other two. The next book I read was Running with Scissors by Augustine Burroughs. It follows, obviously, him. It's a memoir of his life from, I think, 11 to 18. From apparently his mom being in a psychotic state for 8 years, and she giving custody to her therapist over to her therapist of her son because she can't handle him. And he figures out that he is gay. He meets another adopted son of the psychiatrist and ends up having a sexual relationship with him, which I think is completely wrong, which everybody does. And he ends up leaving, and nobody knows where he is. He became estranged to his father, but by the end of the book, he actually has a relationship with his father and is estranged from his mother. And the therapist, which I don't even remember his name. Let me go find it. Dr. Finch actually lost his medical license, and then he also died from heart disease in 2000. And he befriends like a whole, like all the family members and everything. So I really didn't like the book. I just read it, but I didn't like it. And the last book was The Price Guide to the Occult by Leslie Walton. And this was a very, very good book for at least my standards. And it follows a Nor black man who's descended from a witch named Roan Blackman, who settles on a island a century before she came alive, and each of the girls or women in the family are having magical powers, like to heal or to hear. Doing things outside of what you have gifted to you is considered black magic. Hence is why her mother, Nor's mother Fern, did it, by casting all these spells and everything, to the point where her mother tries to kill her repeatedly, which I guess is the price you would pay to do these magic spells outside of what you are gifted, but they call it a burden. And that's what I have read in the month of March. And I'll see you guys in a month to tell you what I read this month in April.